$400 million. That is what a single Kilo-class submarine costs the Russian state. A vessel so quiet that NATO submariners gave it a nickname whispered with genuine respect: the Black Hole. Designed to vanish beneath the waves, to fire cruise missiles from depths where nothing could touch it. And yet, in the harbor at Novorossiysk, something found it. Something built in a workshop, guided by men sitting at screens hundreds of kilometers away. The Black Hole went dark, not from a torpedo fired by another submarine, but from an unmanned drone that should never have been able to reach it. This is the story of how a nation with almost no navy is methodically dismantling one of the most storied fleets on Earth. Let me set the scene properly, because the numbers alone are staggering. For generations, Russia's Black Sea fleet was the crown jewel of its southern power. Sevastopol was its fortress, its home port since the days of the Tsars. And today, by credible estimates, Ukraine has damaged or sunk roughly 1/3 of that fleet, around a dozen warships, while operating essentially no conventional warships of its own. Half of the fleet's tonnage, a third of its combat vessels, gone or crippled, achieved by shadows moving across the water. And here is where it gets interesting. The weapon at the center of all this is not some billion-dollar miracle of engineering. Consider the Magura V5, developed by Ukraine's military intelligence. It runs about 18 feet long and 5 feet wide. It cruises at around 25 miles per hour and sprints to 50. It carries up to 300 kilograms of explosives in its suicide configuration. Much of it is plastic, which means it barely registers on radar. Its motor runs cool, which means it nearly disappears from thermal cameras. It is, in essence, a high-speed bomb that thinks. And the men who pilot these machines belong to a unit known only as Group 13, led by a commander whose codename is simply 13. But the Magura is only one piece. The SBU, Ukraine's security service, fields the Sea Baby, a drone capable of carrying 500 kilograms of explosive. It was a Sea Baby variant that delivered the world's first underwater drone strike against that Kilo-class submarine. Then there are the FP-1 drones. And this detail is one few people know. They are built largely of plywood. Plywood. Their radar cross-section is smaller than a seagull's. After their engines stop, the hull cools rapidly to the temperature of the surrounding sea. So on a thermal camera, they simply melt into the water. They can drop to 2 meters above the surface to hide in what radar operators call ground clutter. And they travel at 180 kilometers per hour. A weapon you can build in a barn, defeating sensors that cost millions. Now let me take you back to the morning that changed everything. October 29th, 4:20 in the morning. Sevastopol Harbor. 9 aerial drones and 7 autonomous marine vessels converged on the fleet's main anchorage in the pre-dawn dark. Russia announced that every target had been destroyed, but pro-Russian channels told a different story. The flagship, the Admiral Makarov, had been struck, its radar system damaged. And the Makarov was no ordinary ship. It was the successor to the Moskva, the cruiser that infamously sank in 2022. One of only 3 frigates of its class Russia ever built for the Black Sea, worth perhaps $450 to $500 million. Crucially, it carried caliber cruise missiles with a range of around 2,500 kilometers, the very weapons used to hammer Ukrainian cities. Defense analysts suggested it may have been Russia's last fully operational caliber-capable surface ship in the region. And here is the strange detail that surfaced later from harbor footage. The Makarov appeared to be smoking before the drone reached it, hinting at a prior unseen impact. Within days of that attack, Russia walked out of the grain deal, the agreement brokered through the United Nations and Turkey that allowed Ukrainian grain to leave Odessa. The World Food Program buys roughly half its grain from Ukraine. The blockade had been costing Ukraine some $20 billion a year. So understand what happened here. A fleet of cheap drones did not just damage warships. They reached across the planet and touched the price of bread in nations that had never heard of Sevastopol. But it still does not end there. Russia did the logical thing. It retreated. The fleet pulled back from Sevastopol to Novorossiysk, a port further east, heavily defended, supposedly safe. And then Novorossiysk was hit too. In one operation, a horde of well over 200 aerial and maritime drones descended on the base. The minesweeper Valentin Pikul was badly damaged. Later, the frigate Admiral Essen, another $500 million vessel, was struck along with a rare hovercraft missile ship. The lesson Moscow could not escape was brutal in its simplicity. There is no safe port, not anywhere within reach. The fleet was relocated again, scattered to lesser harbors, its supply lines broken, and into that gap, Ukraine opened a sea corridor. Roughly 200 cargo ships now visit Odessa's ports each month. The list of losses reads like a roll call. The Moskva, the Ivanovets, the Caesar Kunikov, struck precisely on its boarding ramp. The Sergei Kotov hit on its engines. The Olenigorsky Gornyak landing ship left listing 30 to 40 degrees. The SIG tanker immobilized in the Kerch Strait, and the drones reached the Kerch Bridge itself, Putin's personal symbol of conquest over Crimea. So here is a question worth sitting with, and I genuinely want your answer below. Is this the end of the large surface warship as we know it? When a plywood boat costing a tiny fraction of a frigate can sink that frigate, does the age of the Great Fleet end here on the Black Sea? Some of you will say armor and air defense will adapt. Others will say we just watched the future arrive. Tell me which camp you're in. Now, the Russians have not been idle. Their Ka-27 helicopters became the frontline answer. Fast, able to hover, armed with depth charges and dipping sonar to hunt these drones. They strung underwater chains and walls across Sevastopol's harbor mouth. They bolted anti-drone netting onto ship hulls. There are even credible reports they deployed trained military dolphins to detect drones and saboteurs. But Ukraine kept evolving. Their drones learned to mimic the launch signature of HIMARS rockets, fooling Russian radar computers that assumed a ballistic path, then dropping low to cruise through the radar's dead zones. The newest platform, the Katran, carries Swedish guided torpedoes and a bow-mounted gun, ranges over 1,000 kilometers, and runs with such autonomy it can complete a mission in total radio silence. As one analyst put it, you can jam a signal, but you cannot jam a drone that does not need to talk. If this kind of deep breakdown is what you come here for, you already know what to do. We've covered the missiles raining down on Ukrainian cities in another video on this channel. Worth watching to understand the full picture of why these naval strikes matter so much. So I'll leave you with this. Russia called these attacks terrorism and blamed British troops. Britain called it false claims on an epic scale. Through it all, Ukraine rarely admits a thing. So tell me, when the official accounts contradict each other this completely, who do you actually believe? And why? That is where the real debate begins. I'll be reading.